From a million miles up, we see Germany according to von Boden, outlining the various appellations of this most northern country. Today we're going to focus largely on that blue rectangle toward the top. This is the Rheinhessen. The Rheinhessen is the largest winemaking region in Germany with around 27,000 hectares. For comparison, the Mosel has just under 8,000, and the Rheingau is almost tiny at around 3,000. Yet in the grand scheme of European winemaking, the Rheingau is still quite modest. Just to fling some more numbers at you, Champagne is about 34,000 hectares, Rioja and Tuscany double that at around 65,000, and Bordeaux rumbles along with over 100,000. But I digress. We're here today to visit some of Moritz and Yasmin Kissinger-Bähr's top sites, to situate them in this rather confusing landscape. Let's take a closer look. The Rheinhessen, for all intents and purposes, has been reduced to two very specific places. First, the Roter Hang, or the Red Slope in the northeast. This is a small yet dramatic hillside that looks down to the Rhine River. We have red slate soils here, thus the Red Slope. This is a place that has shaped some of the most famous wines of the 18th and 19th century. As but one example of this place's prestige, Queen Elizabeth used a wine from this place, from the Hipping Vineyard to be exact, to commemorate her coronation in 1953. More recently, the southern part of the Rheinhessen, officially known as the Vonegau, but also sometimes called the Hügelland, meaning land of the hills, has come to prominence largely through the efforts of one very famous estate, namely Keller. You can see where the estate is located, west and a touch north of the city of Worms, right toward the south. Yet beyond these two places, even just a few years ago, I probably couldn't have told you anything else about, the other 26,000 hectares of the Rheinhessen. What the hell is happening here? In the west? In the north? In the center? And so it was something of a shock to us all when in 2018 Moritz Kissinger fashioned, out of the cool limestone of the more central Rheinhessen, his village is called Uelversheim, FYI, one of the more compelling German Chardonnays of the last few decades. Even Klaus-Peter Keller, just 30 minutes south, took notice. A new generation of winemakers in the Rheinhessen, Moritz and Yasmin are just two of the more important ones, are showing us the new potential of the rest of the Rheinhessen that's not as protected by the warmth of the river. As we are in a larger appellation, the Rheinhessen, things are a bit more spread out than we might be used to, at least compared to touring through the crunched cliffs of the Mosel. Some of Kissinger-Bähr's oldest Chardonnay plots lie 10 or so minutes east of the village, in the direction of the Rhine. Still, they are situated significantly up and away from the river itself. Other plots of Pinot Noir or Spätburgunder, outlined in red, and Weißburgunder or Pinot Blanc, outlined in white, sit further west, closer to the village. Yet all of them benefit from this cold, inner Rheinhessen microclimate and a limestone and low soil. This also explains, to some extent, the precision and depth of the sparkling wines here. Sparkling wine is another avenue that the Rheinhessen is only beginning to explore with a very real seriousness. Think of Raumland and now Keller, Lena Singer-Fischer, and Salvestre in the north. Now physically, but also psychologically, Moritz and Yasmin's Rheinhessen looks and feels and tastes in a way more like Burgundy than what we might think of as a typical German wine landscape, or a typical German wine. Now, while any comparison to Burgundy feels cheap and easy, and it is, with the Rheinhessen this comparison might be apt. The general climate here now is closer to what Burgundy was 20 or 30 years ago. But more than that, what's interesting about the Rheinhessen is that it seems plausible to me that Chardonnay, Weißburgunder, Sauvignon Blanc, and others, can anyone say Sauvignon, may eventually achieve a fame and a sense of place here that has only ever been achieved by Riesling. Not that the Riesling will fade, more that these other varieties may come on stronger and come to define the Rheinhessen, at least in important ways. Note, I would not say that about the Mosel in Chardonnay or the Mosel in Pinot, but here, it could come to pass. Now, while this inner Rheinhessen is the thrust and focus of the estate, and the bulk of the production at around 6 hectares, in 2024, Yasmin and Moritz began an exciting new chapter for the estate, in the famous Roter Hang. In 2024, they are able to acquire just over a hectare of prime Riesling vineyards in these red-soiled slopes. In a way, it's fair to think about the estate in two parts. First, the more Burgundian-style still and sparkling wines made from Chardonnay, Spätburgunder, and Weißburgunder. This is what has made them famous. And now, maybe a small homage to the history of Riesling in the Rheinhessen's Roter Hang. While this will never be a significant part of the production, it's a very cool part of the story. They will begin to make single vineyard Rieslings from Kreutz, a site marked above in blue, Orbel, a dramatically sloped site in the valley behind Nierstein. I love this site with its exposure to cool winds coming in from the west. And then to the famous headliners, Hipping, and then Pettental just a bit downriver. These, especially the last two, are sites of great history and fame. We already mentioned the Queen Elizabeth connection, but it's also worth noting that Keller began working small parcels of Pettental and Hipping beginning in 2009 and 2011, respectively. This represented, in many ways, a rebirth for this place. Certainly, it put the Roter Hang back on the map for contemporary collectors. Yasmin and Moritz's acquisitions here are just the newest chapter, albeit a small one, of this storied place. Now, that's the brief overview. It's a complex story, and it's an evolving story. But there's no doubt that the Rheinhessen and its young and tight-knit group of growers have an opportunity here, and the potential to keep the Rheinhessen in the spotlight for many decades to come.